very fondly meeting Tolu, and it was a joy. Just think about a very competitive work environment, and you meet somebody who just answers you directly, and say, I am here because I trust God. It was just a testimony, and it's a testimony that I have lived to see over the last 13 years. And she has spoken into my life in ways that have been important, like when it was time. It was time for me to step out of the boat, the comfortable boat of the World Bank. I had an open-ended position, which meant that I could work there until I was 62. Now it's even 67. That's a long time. And, but the Lord had been nudging me out. And the Lord used Tolu to confirm an important step in my life. And it's been one of the best steps that I've taken. And walking out on the water with the Lord, Peter got scared. We get scared every now and then. Nevertheless, the Lord has been faithful. So I have been part of Jesus' house for many years. I've been to your Biazos. I can just name all of the speakers. I've slipped in the back, sat there and enjoyed Biazo in the past, and really value the work that you do. So let me just say a few words about the introduction, and we'll have an activity where you can talk to your neighbor, because I really believe that learning is, for adults, is important when it's participative. And so there'll be 4 aspects of what we're doing here together. One, I'll say a few things about my own journey, and then I'll introduce some content. Then I'll get you to talk to each other, and then we'll have a video at the end. So 4 aspects of what we're going to do. We're going to work with time, and we will get this in. So how many of you have been to the World Bank, what we call the main complex, the atrium? There's a big, the World Bank has many buildings, but there's something we call the main complex, big atrium. How many people have been there? Any hands in the room? Okay, just a couple of you. So one of the stories I want to start telling you today was in June 1998, I entered that World Bank main complex for the first time. And it's just expansive. You look up and it's just huge. It's an award-winning building. But when I entered there, I've entered many big buildings in my life, but when I entered the World Bank main complex, I felt small. I was suddenly transported to my 7-year-old self. I felt that little. And my 7-year-old self was a little carefree girl in then Victoria, Cameroon. And I noticed it. I noticed how insignificant I felt in that moment. So I'm going to read you a story of another woman who entered another building. Her name is Sally Hogshead. I'll tell you a little bit about her. She says in her book, the first chapter, I entered the lobby of TWA Advertising Agency on Madison Avenue, wearing my new 1995 vinyl pumps, many unruly hair gelled back into a bow. It was the summer of 1991, 2 weeks after my college graduation. TWA had recently debuted the iconic, pardon the thing here, but they had debuted the iconic Absolut Vodka campaign and was now polishing its fame to blinding perfection. Entering the all-white lobby made most people feel suddenly self-conscious, acutely aware of otherwise irrelevant detail, such as the fact that the dry cleaner seamstress had recently resewn a button with an off-colored thread. Yet, on the first day of my unpaid summer internship, walking into that lobby I felt no intimidation whatsoever. Not because I possessed any unattainable cool, but quite the opposite. I was too clueless, even to have a clue of how clueless I was. Two women entering first employment for the first time. Two very different reactions. So for many years, I felt self-conscious about that. Why did I feel little? Why would I was a PhD, I was competitively recruited by the bank, I was one of the top experts in online education in 1998. Think about it. Many people didn't even know what online teaching and learning was. I helped design the first ever online course at Virginia Tech that I used for my dissertation. I was totally quizzed by the best PhD minds on my dissertation. So I knew how to defend my stuff. But I entered the World Bank building and I felt small. And for many years, that baffled me. That bothered me. Why did I feel small? Truly, I started reflecting on my life and I realized that I do have that tendency. Every time I enter a situation, my first instinct is, what don't I know? Who's here? What do they know? And you know, in assertiveness training, in financial investment organizations, that's so not the right way to enter an organization. You know, I mean, you really want to know your stuff. You want to even be blustery. You even want to fake it till you make it. You really, that's how they train people in Madison Avenue on Wall Street. But here I am entering global banking institutions, always saying, what don't I know? What do I have to learn? And it baffled me until I saw the first model. So I'm going to go to the first slide. When I saw this model a couple of years ago teaching, actually at the House of Sweden, I was teaching the IMF leaders and managers. I ran into this model. It made sense for me. Because this model says that when it comes to abilities, when it comes to our strengths, that in any new situation, we go through those 4 steps. And those 4 steps are like Sally Hogshead. And Sally Hogshead is now one of America's best marketing gurus. People pay up to $8,000 to go through her seminars in California. And she has an amazing assessment that will tell you your strengths. She has just grown into marketing, in training others in marketing. So Sally Hogshead was in stage 1, totally unconsciously incompetent. And when I saw this, I started feeling better. Because in every situation, I tend to go at what level? But why do I tend to go to level 2? Because I come from a long line of educators. My grandfather was one of the first German-trained educators in Cameroon. As a matter of fact, when I grew up as a child, people would ask, how's Molele? Molele is my mother tongue for teacher. So he was called teacher because he was a trained teacher. My mother is a retired teacher. So I come from that long line. I have education in my DNA. So I am always conscious of what I need to learn. So when I saw this, then I thought, wow, I am one step ahead of those people who just blindly walk into situations and just think, oh, I got this. Because the research says in any transition, in any transition that you make, whether it's a role, or whether you change jobs, or whether you step into new responsibility, like we heard about one of the volunteers who was just recognized. She was asked to step into a new role, and she resisted and resisted and resisted. Notice the difference. Chances are that person who was now recognized and has become like an assistant in that volunteer role here in your church, chances are she's starting at level 2. And watch those people who come and go, oh, I got this. I got this. Chances are they're where? Yeah. So notice that. Notice that the sooner you know where you are, the sooner you can get going on what you need to do to move through those stages. And obviously, you have to invest. And the best way for adults to learn, I'm seeing some of you take notes, is through your own personal reflection. When it comes to abilities, especially volunteering abilities like this, it's self-reflection, self-responsibility. We're not in school anymore where some teacher is going to be testing you all the time. You must be internally motivated to track your own development through those stages. To say, okay, today I was at level 2. What am I going to try differently next month, next week, so that I can move from level 2 to conscious competence, so I can be better, so people are noticing that I am improving. It does not happen automatically. Now, you'll see later on how our own brains sabotage us when we think this is automatic. It doesn't happen automatically. The people who move through this stage are intentional. They track this. They get feedback. Some of the recognition that we saw here is definite feedback. These people stand out better. Chances are they are on this side of this chart. Their competence has shifted to the other side of the chart. So that's the good news. The good news is that even when you have an ability, if you were serving in one area, in one church, or you're serving in one area at work, when you step into a volunteer opportunity here at Jesus House, you are somewhere on this side of this chart, or this 4 quadrants right here. And make note of that and commit to yourself what are some things you will do, or watch other people who tend to be on this side. Watch what they do, to use them as your role models, to say, okay, I noticed she did this, I noticed he did this, so that I can improve my competence. So we'll come back to this. I just wanted to share with you one small but important concept that has really helped and that we use to develop leaders as step 1, because we want to know that bluffing our way through new situations tends to have us at step 1. The sooner you come to terms with what you need to do to improve your competence, the sooner you move from level 1 to level 2. So it's up to you. It's up to you in any situation to take seriously what are the necessary steps to improve even your own competence in any strength or an ability, because your strengths don't transfer automatically. Every new opportunity, just remember that, every new opportunity, every new challenge presents an opportunity for upgrades. Even for the areas of strength that you've known. You've read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, where he says certain skills and abilities require how many hours? 10,000 hours. Well, great. That's like playing world-class hockey or playing basketball like LeBron James, right? But even the things that we do, what he is saying is that even to upgrade any area of strength takes time and takes work. So can you be conscious? And hopefully it will not take you 10,000 hours. I beg to differ to say that if it's an area of strength and you're just changing situations, it will take you less than that. The bottom line of that research and that book is that it is not automatic. Mastery is not automatic. So there's another example. Tolu and I had another colleague who worked with us, who worked in BP. And this was the stage when British Petroleum was moving from just drilling oil to really making money in the markets. So they had a division of BP in Chicago called the traders. They were trading futures in BP. So they were using BP resources to really forecast and buy oil when they think it was going down, or buy oil. I don't even know futures very well, but really hedge. They were hedging their own investment by forecasting oil prices in the market. And BP noticed that the best traders were so good, they were in a class in and of itself. So BP was like, great, you're good. Now, can we get the two of you to train everybody else? What do you think happened? Because they were where? Totally unconsciously competent. They were so good. They didn't even know what they did that was good. They had moved right down there. So we find that when we become so good, we can get ourselves in that nice little box over there where we are almost automatic. We are on automatic mode. Boom, 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 boom. And that's good for service. But when we are in a church environment like this, or when you're in my line of work, where you have to develop the capacity of others, the ideal in this model is this axis. You can be unconsciously competent, but you have to stay grounded in conscious incompetence. You must, that axis is the key even in Christian service, because it's a note of humility. There's a note of humility. If all you do is park yourself in that fourth quadrant, you can relate to people who are on this other side. So the ironic thing about this model is that the axis for us, for servant leadership, is this axis of unconscious incompetence with conscious incompetence. Enter a situation, seeing who needs help, remembering what it took for you to move over there, keeping track of it so you can help somebody else. You see how it relates over here? Because no matter what service you provide here in Jesus' house, you are not successful until you can train your own successor. So can you keep track of how you improved and how you made your way through there so that you can bring a helping hand and bring somebody else to that level where you're at? So even a non-Christian model like that, for me, I liked it because it validates our own Christian values, the value of service, the value of sharing, the value of generosity, even in this area. Yeah? So that's a good model. It's easy. It's just good to remember. It's good to use even for your children. It's good to use for yourself. It's good to use when you train. I'm going to go to 2 more levels, and I'm going to give you some activities to just work with each other. How am I doing with time? Okay. So one of the things I told you and I were discussing about this is there's a way where, as an individual, no matter what ability you're talking about and where you are on this chart, you can maximize your own abilities. Just think of one ability right now. Let's say that you have an ability to teach. Right? It's one of my abilities that I kind of inherited. Trust me, I went to school for a long time to learn to teach, right? Even though I come from a long line of teachers. There is research out there to show that you can add what they call interaction effects to you as an individual by adding some complementary skills. So think with me. So I'm a teacher, I have gone to school, I have studied, I have degrees, but what really takes my teaching skills? What other complementary skills would really make me, there's a Harvard article that says that it makes you indispensable. What would take me to that level of indispensability? What kind of skills? Communication skills. I had to learn how to communicate. Now, let me tell you something. I come from a line of horrible stutterers. Can you believe it? I am a bad stutterer. If I say that word twice, I will start stuttering on that word, stuttering. I had to work hard to learn how to communicate, to overcome, to use my breath, to improve my skills. I had to improve my interaction effect with teaching. So as individuals, you want to know what are some complementary skills that match up with your natural abilities. Depending on the work, on the volunteer, the service that you're providing, depending on your profession, the research shows that you can totally maximize your own performance and make yourself indispensable. Let's say as a profession, think about nursing. Think about, even at IFC, one of the distinguishing services we provided our investment officers was to pay for their CFA review. CFA is different from CPA. CFA is Chartered Financial Analyst. The corporation paid for investment officers with big MBAs to be CFA certified. And I had to make a case, because it was from my budget, I had to make a case, why should the organization pay for level 1, level 2, level 3? I sat down with portfolio managers and said, tell me, why should the corporation pay for investment officers who make good money, by the way, good bonuses? Why should we pay? And a portfolio manager said, Yolanda, for 3 reasons. If I have 2 investment officers, one of them is CFA certified, one of them is not, I spend more time supervising the work of the non-CFA certified investment officer than of the CFA officer, just analytically and in terms of quantitatively. Thank you. Another thing he said CFA has a very high level of ethics. When you get certified in CFA, you really understand investments and ethical decisions in investments. Another reason for him to be more comfortable that the investment officers who were working, supervising the portfolio and all of that, disbursements, payments, and all of that, had more ethics training than what they had in MBA program. That was a portfolio manager who had discovered what? An interaction effect. The complementarity to the best MBA programs out in the world. What is your complementarity? What gives you as an individual here, either for your volunteer service or for your own profession, that kind of interaction effect? So let me show you a slide, the next slide, some suggestions. There's a guy named David Cantor who talks about the 4-player models, that there are 4 critical behaviors and actions that are important for individuals. And the first one, it says that to get anything done, you have to make a move. You have to provide direction. And the kind of complementarity there is you take initiative, you solve problems. You don't just say, oh, well, you know, that just happened. I came, the door was closed, and, you know, I didn't know it was going to rain. Or that level of leadership requires initiative. Whatever you're doing, recognize the opportunities where you need to clarify. In volunteer opportunities, you want to have those conversations before they happen. The time to prepare for war is when? During the time of peace. So can you think of contingencies to say, well, if this happened, what do you think I should do? That is the kind of initiative, that's the kind of complementarity that it takes for decision makers and for a leader to begin to feel your indispensability. She's thinking ahead. She's thinking ahead. She's preparing herself for a problem that may occur or may not even occur. By even preparing ahead, you may avert a problem. So that's an example of a model that we use and to show that complementarity. Another one at an individual level is that if you're working on a team here and your leader gives that direction, we say make a move. David Cantor says makes a move. A good complementarity is, again, it's easy in the church, but watch sometimes when some kind of reactions rise up in you. Well, just watch around you to make sure that you are following to complete tasks, to complete direction. What distinguishes people on a team, what distinguishes you eventually, are you known for your completion? Are you known as somebody who doesn't let balls drop? Are you known for finishing and coming to report to your leader to say, I have done this, is there anything else? It's done on time, or we're maybe running late, something about timing, providing that kind of feedback. That's what begins to distinguish you. That's what begins to show the kind of complementarity. And you could even say, well, I have done this. I was thinking about this. Set self-development goals. Discuss them with your leader to say, you know, I helped this week. I was thinking that maybe we could do this next year, do that next year, do that next time. That self-initiative is what begins to interact with your God-given ability and sets you apart. That's the kind of individual interaction effect that makes you indispensable at work. The people who come early, who leave late, who say, is there anything else that I should be looking at, begins to set you apart. And that's at a personal level. So you can see some other examples here. It's also the person who asks questions. Sometimes in our Christian circles, we think the only way we serve a vision in a church like this or in a community like this is just to follow. But also know that you can provide, you can maximize ability if you think of questions. If you really can think of what could go wrong. How many of you have been on teams where you have engaged in the best project management, you have set the vision, you've set the goals, you've set the timeline, everything, and there's a nagging feeling in you that it's too easy. How many of you have been there? It's too easy, it's too easy, it's too easy, it's too easy. What do we tend to do in church environments? What do we do with that kind of feeling? I don't know about you guys, but unless it is like a spiritual gift where you say, I got a word of knowledge, or I got a word of wisdom, or something like that. Sometimes we're not empowered to articulate right there and then what could go wrong. So leaders who want this interaction effect, see that axis, who move, ask for it. As a leader, if you're leading volunteers, you have explained everything and they're just about to dispatch, ask them, what haven't we thought about? What could go wrong? It is better to know about that when? During the planning phase. This is something we don't do very well because we're so good at problem solving and we do it on the run. But this is what begins to distinguish your service in any group that you're in. Can you always ask that question? What haven't we thought about? What is missing? What could go wrong? So the perfect example is one of our best communications teachers goes to Switzerland and they're putting together a pharmaceutical campaign, and things are going well. And there's this little guy in the corner who's been quiet, is nerdy, hasn't said a word at all. And at the end, they're about to go out the door, and the little guy said, excuse me, you know, if I add all the hours that we have talked about in this project, it's going to take us 3 months. I thought our timeline was 3 weeks. For private sector companies, that makes or break a product. That makes or break a product. Can we have that kind of conscientiousness when we're serving our master? To always think ahead. To always saying, what have we overlooked in this situation? What? That's one of the best interaction effects that we can have. And the last one is not so easy. It's a perspective. Is to always bring a strategic view of things. Again, I've worked with Tolu for a long time. That's a gift that I know she brings, certainly in the workplace, and I think in personal relationships. And you know, it's a gift to cultivate. It's a gift to cultivate because it takes a routine process, it takes a routine activity to the next level. And so it is that whole ability where you step back and really look and hold a mirror and says, can I tell you what I see? Can I tell you what just occurred to me? In my own opinion, that's a natural gift. But if we link it to what Pastor Chinyere talked about, these are some of the revelation gifts that we talk about in terms of spiritual gifts. This is where the Lord speaks to you in dreams. He gives you visions. This is where he drops a word into your spirit. This is perspective. In the world, we call it, in Christians, we call it revelation gifts, but in the world, we call it perspective. This is where we pay big bucks to McKinsey to say, tell China what 2017 looks like. And if you want a good read, just go Google, fast forward 2017 McKinsey of China. It's online. How McKinsey is forecasting what China should anticipate in 2017. That's perspective. Big bucks. Big bucks. You can bring that interaction effect to the work you do by simply stepping back and looking at short-term, medium-term, long-term horizons. Looking at it from another perspective. And simply, humbly saying, may I share a thought that just occurred to me? You're serving the whole right there. So that's one way you can, as an individual, totally maximize your natural abilities is by looking for those complementarity. And the last level is, I've touched on it already, if you are a leader, you can look at that and say, what's my natural tendency? Can you notice that as a leader, you just tend to follow, that I love to hear the pastor's vision and my task is to follow? Well, great. You have served for years and years and years from that behavior, from that capability. But you have also developed enough wisdom where in a planning meeting you could ask for a one-on-one meeting to say, can I just share some thoughts that I have about some risks that I see? That is equally, if not more, valuable than simply following to complete the task. It's the how of doing that that matters. It's not about being opportunistic, it's not about showboating, but can you serve a leader? In that axis, we call it like a loyal opposer. You are totally guarding the leader's vision to check what could go wrong, what could go wrong, what could go wrong. And over time, many of us have valued people who help us see the risks and begin to propose ways to mitigate the risks sooner rather than later. So as leaders, can you cultivate an atmosphere on your team where you are getting this input? You are inviting this input. And one of the ways we do it is, we're going to go to a planning meeting. We don't have much time. Can you just think with me, what could go wrong? What are we missing? What is not said? Notice the people in the room. If I have to end the meeting quickly, can you notice if somebody has something that they did not say so we can follow up and hear from them? So you can assign that responsibility to somebody. Because, again, time is of essence. And in that way, you get that whole, as a leader, not just for yourself, but as a leader, you elevate the effectiveness of your team by inviting that kind of interaction effect on the front end. So again, 3 ways that something as simple as ability can be grown, can be maximized, can be optimized, is by looking for complementarity, strengths, gifts in yourself, or by inviting it and pulling it out of other people on your team. Is that helpful? Okay. So now, what I'd like to do is invite you, we go to the next slide. So what I'd like you to do is just think for a minute. I've just shared 3 pieces of information about the steps in developing competency and about magnifying and maximizing your own ability. Do a mental note if you have a notepad in front of you. Just write for yourself an assessment. Where are you? Use your volunteer opportunity here at Jesus House. Where are you on that 4-step model? Really quickly. And then secondly, think carefully to say, what ability could magnify? What ability could interact my own strengths in the volunteer activity that I have here at Jesus House? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. If you have paper and pen, you can write it down. But if not, I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. You're going to pair up with somebody, and you're going to share those 2 things. Where am I on that competency chart? And what abilities would increase my interaction effect in the volunteer ability, in the volunteer opportunity here? Any questions about what I'm asking you to do? This is where we apply, and this is where we hear from other people, so that even if we don't quite nail this, somebody else can give you their own example that kind of jogs your own memory and kind of tweaks it a little bit. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you one of the most groundbreaking videos, a 3-minute video about why this is so important. So really quickly, 2 questions. Get up, walk to somebody, and share yours. In 1 minute, I'm going to give you time. You switch, the other person shares theirs. Where are you given your volunteer opportunity here? Where are you on that chart? What is an ability that amplifies your strength for that service? This is now where we put all the phones away. Hi, Pastor. So make sure you switch now, hear from the other person. 1 more minute.